Hi everyone. Again, my name is Yaron. I am the pedagogical advisor of ESD for schools and youth. We met in the previous lecture. We talked about the importance of teachers being positive role models for the students. But I'm sure some of you objected, and something inside said, wait, how can I be a role model in ESD? I'm not a self-defense instructor. I never studied self-defense except in this advanced training. I learned to be a teacher of English, of history, not a self-defense teacher. So to understand this requirement and what it means, one must understand and be familiar with the history of ESD for schools. And this will be the first part of our talk today. The idea of self-defense for women is not new, and it is always innovative. When we look around, we are amazed that not every woman or girl gets the right to learn self-defense. In Israel, in Jerusalem, there is an organization that it is the root of ESD, and it is called To the Heart. It is the Israeli Center of Empowerment, of Empowering Self-Defense, whose founder, Judith Siddickman, is also the one who founded ESD, the World Organization, the global organization. This organization in Israel operated for years, maybe 10 years, exclusively with women and girls. And all the instructors who are working there are experts in some kind of martial arts, judo, karate, ninjutsu, and others. Now, when this workshop for girls has started getting permits to work in schools, the schools resented and said, why the self-defense classes are only for girls? What about the boys? This question is very problematic because if the vast majority of violence cases are by boys toward girls and men toward women, then why suddenly teach boys about self-defense? Another problem is that this organization, El Halev, To the Heart, has 10, 15 instructors. How can they teach self-defense in 30,000 schools in Israel? Even if schools invite them to work every day, they will collapse under the burden. I joined the organization to help and solve these problems. And we made a massive move called the Men's Incubator. The Men's Incubator was a week-long workshop in the United States where we met men from all over the world, from Nepal, Australia, South America, Europe, the US, and more. And we talk about creating a self-defense program for boys in the spirit of ESD for women, and how to find enough teachers to teach this program. We did this incubator in a judo training center, which allowed us to introduce them to our ideas. We interviewed dozens of judo teachers, and none of them expressed a willingness to teach this kind of self-defense. They relate to judo as a sport, not as a vehicle to stop violence or sexual violence. Because of their response, we understood that our expectation of training many martial arts experts is unrealistic. We thought the whole week what we can do, and then we realized that the only solution to this problem is using the teachers' human power within schools. When I think of education, I always have three questions: who, what, and how. So basically, in this discovery, we understood the answer to the first question: who? Who will teach ESD? It will be the teachers in schools. So the realization to train schools teachers to be ESD instructors started in planning ESD back then for boys. After the ESD organization also understood that training male and female teachers would be the best solution for spreading ESD worldwide, we started with this kind of trainings that you are going through. And this is why you are here. You have an excellent opportunity to teach all your students the essence of ESD. So we know who will teach and why it is you, but we still need to answer the questions of what we will teach and how we will do it. About the what to teach, don't worry. We prepared for you 8 lesson plans that will guide you in teaching ESD in your classes. These lesson plans are simple. We made it simple because we are not martial art instructors. We made it simple so these lesson plans can serve as first aid kit that any teacher everywhere can teach. Fighting in ESD is the final solution to violence, and we always prefer not to get there. Instead, we concentrate on tools that lead students to develop a peak of awareness about what is happening around them. Give them tools to be alert. Give them options to deal with threats. And you see these lesson plans, when you see them, you will understand how the training you are undergoing here these days is providing you enough experience and abilities to pass on these materials later on to your students. So we need less to be worried about the what. We will get there. But now we need to concentrate, this is the second part of our talk today, about the how, because it has a particular importance. How is like the methodology of ESD. How does the methodology of ESD works? All of us teachers know that our task in every lesson is to convey a specific material. And we also know that this material can be most exciting, the most important. It can be math, history, physical education, science, literature, but no matter what, if the way of transferring these materials is unsuccessful or raises objections, the students will not agree to study these materials. Now, in our case, learning empowering self-defense can be much more problematic. When I interviewed high school students in my research, I made a list of their most leading responses to violence and sexual assaults. I found in this research that both boys and girls usually oppose these issues and even denied its importance. The reactions I encountered from the most common to the little present were, and I want to show you. First, they said, it doesn't happen, or at least doesn't happen as much as you talk about it. It is not what matters. To deal with these problems, there are more important ones. It always has been and always will be. It doesn't matter what you will do. True, it happens, but what can I already do? It happens, I read about it on Facebook. It happens, I want to change this situation. In most classes, the prominent reactions were the first 3, and not the last 2, and certainly not the last. What I also learned in this research was that students most often move from one responses to the other and not from the first to the last. If we demand from them to change their opinions completely, they will reject us. I want to remind us that we're still talking about the how to teach ESD materials so the students won't reject them. Why do they tend to oppose? It's a good question. Because it is not easy to talk about violence, verbal violence, physical violence, sexual violence, and all of that in classes with a teacher, especially with the boys and girls. We need to act very carefully and not make students run away from us. So I made this model for explaining the how. I call it the triangle model. Here we have the student. The letter N symbolizes him. He is the normal in his own eyes. And here we are on the left corner of the triangle with our ideas of ESD. Before they know what ESD is, ESD for students is an R, a radical idea in a bad sense. Now, any of us who have never tried to bring a radical topic to class knows that normal students can turn into blocks and refuse to learn or to hear any ideas that sounds radical to them. Instead of being radical, what I'm suggesting, what I've seen works. The way to answer the question how is to teach ESD materials step by step. You can see it here on the drawing of the triangle. Not only that I go one step further at a time, but I also make sure to give students a sense that they should not give up their original position. I extend to them their position, their understanding, but do not detach them from themselves. This extension is what we mean in ESD empowerment. And in fact, this is the best way to deliver the ESD knowledge in an empowering way. In this way, each time I step forward for more understanding and experience, I will never disconnect them from their source. And from my experience, when working like this with students, slowly they become ready for radical ideas. If you're asking yourself, what is so radical about ESD? Let me tell you. For girls, the possibility of defending themselves against sexual assault is revolutionary. It's not obvious. For boys, talking to them about not knowing how to protect themselves, talking about that they might be sexually assaulted, that they may have already been sexually assaulted, and didn't know how to respond. All of this is radical. You will see that the lesson plans you will receive step slowly, one step at a time, and bring the students slowly to a complete understanding of ESD. So let's sum up. In this lecture, we talk about the history of ESD. We understand that boys must also learn empowering self-defense and why teachers in school should teach this program. Then we talk about the how, what, and who. And we realize that our how is essential. It would determine the degree of cooperation our students had with us. I was happy to talk to you today, as well as the last time, and I will see you all in my next talk with you. Thank you so much. Bye for now from Jerusalem. Bye-bye.